Hi, I'm Kashish Pawar, the Vice President of Finance and Investment Cell, Shahid Bhagat Singh Evening College, and the host for today's podcast session. I welcome you all on this expedition of the Finance Burrito, a podcast series themed on bringing forth the notion of finance and investment in general. I would like to introduce you all to Ms. Priyal Kenny as a speaker for today's podcast session on the theme Role of Microfinance in Women Empowerment. Priyal Kenny is a chartered accountant. She's a McKinsey Next Generation Women Leaders 2020 alumni and a GGI Scholar 2021. She has been a rifle shooter since 2008 and has represented India for 7 years as a member of the Indian shooting team. Has won 117 medals and broken three national records till date. She's also the founder of the Play and Shine Foundation. So, without any further stall, let's dive right in for our first question. So, are you ready, Priyal?
Yeah, of course. And thank you so much for inviting me to this session. And I'm eagerly looking forward to it. And I hope the next 20 minutes are going to be a very fruitful conversation between us.
Yeah, we expect that too. So, let's dive right in. Starting off with the most basic questions. As we have all witnessed in the pandemic era, there rose a culture of small businesses where mainly women stood up and chose to work. So, was microfinance somewhere involved in the rise of such startups? And if yes, how did it boost the confidence and in turn raise the revenue up?
I think microfinance does play a very pivotal role when we speak about women entrepreneurship or we speak about women empowerment because generally women are the ones who are largely excluded from the labor force. Like if you look at the female labor force statistics of the female labor force participation rate in our country, it's very low. Like India in comparison to not only other global countries, but even in comparison to its immediate neighbors is not going well on the labor force participation quotient. So to boost that, microfinance can be used as a catalyst, and it is in fact a very important tool because here we're talking about women who have business ideas, but for the kind of background they come with, they have a lot of inhibitions or they have a lot of apprehensions towards taking risk or undertaking business that involves too much of business risk or involves too much of scale in the mere fear that what if it doesn't work out or what if everything goes downhill. And for the backgrounds also they come from, generally these are women who have been a part of some form of small scale employment before or were solely looking after household activities but now want to jump into the labor force or take up entrepreneurship. So they do not have too much of net worth on their names. They do not have too much of savings, and if they approach other formal institutions for any form of formal lending or any form of formal loans, then that is very impossible for them to get to. And because of this, they do not have access to funds. They do not have access to any kind of line of credit. And over here, microfinance actually comes into play because it provides women with this access to finance that they are seeking. And these women are largely running these MSMEs, which are the micro, small, and medium scale enterprises. So to fund these enterprises, the basic amount of finance they require or the basic amount of funding they're seeking comes in through the route of microfinance. And we have clearly observed this over the last 14 to 16 months since COVID has hit, and a lot of families were affected by it. A lot of men of the house who were actually the source of earning, who were actually the bread earners of the families, have actually lost their lives because of COVID or lost their sole source of earning, lost their jobs, lost their source of employment. So in such extreme situations, many a times we observe that the woman had to come ahead and actually take up the responsibility of being the one who's contributing income to the household, who's contributing in sense of an earning capacity to the entire family. And when they took up to the entire idea of entering into entrepreneurship or entering into business, microfinance is what actually came to their help here and actually served as a launch pad for them to do this.
Okay, that's great. So, moving on to the next question, as there are constant changes going on in the global market, how should microfinance institutions respond to the current changes with respect to an increase in women recognition?
So globally, the entire scenario around women empowerment and women entrepreneurship has changed drastically over the last 1 decade. Like, it's been changing over the past few decades, but the amount of momentum it has gained lately is simply significant, is simply that cannot be overlooked. Now people are becoming observable to things as how many women entrepreneurs does a country have, or how many women are taking up leadership roles, which is why this entire research around the labor force participation rate, this entire research around women entrepreneurship. So because of all these reasons, ignoring microfinance before, or just having it as a part somewhere in the background is not an option anymore. Having increased access to microfinance has become more and more important, ensuring that whatever facilities are available are actually made accessible to these women. And especially when we talk about women working in tier 2 or tier 3 cities, or working in villages or rural areas, who are a part of these self-help groups or self-help communities, who do not have direct access to these microfinance facilities, they are given this access. They are given the awareness of the avenues and the opportunities they have, of how they can avail to them, and of what benefit it can be of them. Because when we even look at women labor force participation or women employment, I think if you go a step back, the women literacy rate also comes into play here, and a lot of these women come from backgrounds where they could not seek any formal form of education, or could not complete their higher education, or even complete their primary education, as a matter of fact, but have great entrepreneurial skills, have great business ideas. So over here, the lack of awareness also comes into play, and to ensure that, or to bridge that gap, or to fill that void, creating awareness about microfinance, how it can be useful, what are the different opportunities and avenues available, and ensuring the access to the ones in need will clearly address the problem statement that we're looking at.
Okay. So the next question is, what are the main challenges that women face with microfinance, especially the management of microfinance?
So I think with the access to funds even comes the management of funds. And like I mentioned previously, a lot of these women lack any kind of formal education. So these entire fund management skills or other managerial skills that are required, that comes in with fund management, is something that these women lack. Many a times the funds come in, but they do not know how to put it to the best use. So a little kind of mentorship, a little kind of guidance with respect to this is also required, which is why you must have observed that there are a lot of incubation or accelerator programs of late, or a lot of mentorship programs specifically looking at women-led ventures, or looking at women-led entrepreneurial ideas or organizations, to provide the formal guidance, to provide the formal mentorship that these women need, so that they can chalk out the right roadmap, they can chalk out the right blueprint, and also utilization of the funds that have come in happen in the right manner to ensure this. So I think when it comes to what these women lack, I think access to the right kind of guidance, having or possessing the right kind of managerial skills, or perhaps even the lack of experience, because probably this is the first time they're entering the space of entrepreneurship. This is the first time they're starting their business. So that is again something that they lack, which is a gap that needs to be filled.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you said. And the next question is, what could be the alternative anti-poverty program in place of microfinance that could be used for funding?
So I think we are looking at two completely different aspects over here. Number one, we're looking at microfinance for women empowerment. And secondly, when you talk about anti-poverty programs, we're looking at the problem statement of poverty alleviation, which is something that is totally different, because through these programs, what you're looking at is targeting eradication of poverty. But targeting eradication of poverty is not the solution to the problem. What eradication of poverty does is probably it addresses the problem statement, or it does a bit of a damage control. For example, if there is any woman or any family that is living below the poverty line, have no money with them, and then you bring them under this any other poverty program by which they are given the funds, they are brought to par or above the poverty line. So you're doing the damage control. But what after that? how can this family sustain? How can they ensure longevity? How can they ensure that this situation does not dawn upon them again, or they do not go back to square one once the support of this program is withdrawn? So such kind of programs don't provide any long-term sustainability or longevity, which is why programs like microfinance are important, because not only do they ensure eradication of poverty, but they also ensure empowerment. They kind of provide the opportunities by which women, if they're specifically looking at women entrepreneurship, can not only bail themselves out of the situation they are in, can not only pull themselves out of poverty, but also ensure that they have a good standard of living or a decent standard of living, which can be sustainable going forward. So it's not a one-time thing where you're just getting someone out of the entire poverty bracket, showing them a certain standard of living, and then there is no surety of that person not getting thrown back here. So microfinance kind of empowers in that way, because if you're looking at a woman, it's making her competent in the long run or going forward to take care of herself or to raise an entire family or to fund her requirements. So I think there is no replacement for microfinance. If you're looking at anti-poverty programs, they are probably damage control, but they are not a long-term solution to the problem.
Okay, so you mentioned that microfinance in turn provides opportunities for women, in difference with the anti-poverty programs. So could you list some kind of opportunities that microfinance helps them into?
So it actually provides the funds that is required for everything, because if you want to start any organization, be it a one-person company, or be it a sole proprietorship or partnership, or even a small private limited company, or any form of venture, any organization, the main blood of it and the main crux of it is funding. Because no matter how much of a good business idea you have, nothing is going to materialize if you do not have funds to put into action whatever plans you have. So I think microfinance really helps here, because it provides easy access to this funding at the cost of minimal business risk, which is very important, because you do not want to take up funds at the cost of overtaking too much of business risk, which can be a long-term threat to you or your business. And secondly, there is not as much as a formal procedure or a formal terms and conditions that are required with any other formal form of opting for loan or credit. Like, for example, you go to a bank or you go to any other formal institution and you try to opt for a loan. Otherwise, there is so much of procedure, there is so much of like you have to declare a mortgage, you have to declare this, you have to declare this. There's a lot of issues that are involved over there, and a lot of these women don't get past it. So I think streamlining the entire access to funds and ensuring that they have easy access to funds is what microfinance actually addresses over here. And of course, once they have access to these funds, it actually answers a lot of their issues going ahead, because if they can set up an organization for themselves, they start earning. This empowers them. They kind of do not get suppressed by the family anymore. They can pursue the careers they want. They can have opinions for themselves. They can give their children a better standard of living. And a lot of other social issues also that you look at, like female feticide or dowry or domestic violence, almost all these issues get addressed only because a woman is empowered in some way or the other. So it is not only solving the financial aspects of it or the financial issues of it, but in turn, it even solves a lot of social issues also, which are highly prevalent in our country.
Yeah, absolutely. The next question is, in recent times, there has been a change in the lifestyle of women with microfinancing involved for the greater good. Can you enlist some examples where microfinance impacted women and totally commuted their lifestyle?
So I think there are a lot of examples. Won't really be able to name one, but we see a lot of these self-help groups that are coming up in these villages who are actually coming ahead as a way of not only preserving our indigenous art, but actually taking them to the metropolitan markets or taking them to global markets. Over here, microfinance has really come into play in a very important way. Nowadays, you get to read a lot of stories also where women living in tribal villages and other localities are actually setting up their own centers or their own self-help groups by which they're locally manufacturing sanitary napkins. And this practice is not only important because it's not only empowering women to speak up for their own health, but it's also addressing a major issue that is deaths caused due to lack of access to great sanitation requirements or resources. So I think these are the little ways in which it's not just about setting up a business and running a profit, but it's about the overall social good, the overall sustainability. Because when we speak about sustainability, we're not only looking at the economic aspect or the social aspect. It's actually us looking at three different aspects, that is the social aspect, the environmental aspect, and the economic aspect. So the economic aspect is of course addressed when you have an organization that's reaping you profits, but even the social environmental aspect is addressed, women actually coming out and starting their own social organizations from scratch and actually making them big.
Yeah, that was what I was looking for as an answer. And the next question is, so focusing on the college aspect, basically women in our 20s. So, like me, like I'm in my third year of my college. So, how can microfinance impact our lives? How should we borrow or basically repay to ensure it's smooth process? What can be the operational risk factors involved?
So I think that's a very good question, because even I started a social impact organization straight out of college. So I know what it is like to have an amazing idea in your mind, probably even have a co-founder in mind or a team in mind by which you know you can make this work out, but then realizing you do not have the funds to do so. And given the general trend as of now with people, not only women, but the general transition to more towards entrepreneurship, or more towards, let me start my own venture, let me start my own startup rather than sitting for college placements or taking up a corporate job is really on the high trend nowadays. I see a lot of youngsters opt for it. And probably if I were graduating from college right now, I would have done the same, because back then I did not have as much as exposure as is available right now. Did not know about the different avenues and the opportunities that are available. So yes, of course, if you are in your early 20s, just starting out fresh out of college or still in college and have an idea, I think you should never underplay yourself or never undermine yourself that, oh, probably I'm too young to start off with this, or does this make sense, or how I'm going to go ahead. There are a lot of opportunities out there to support you. So I would suggest, before really trying to reach out to any of these microfinance facilities, there are a lot of incubator centers, there are a lot of accelerator programs, especially for women entrepreneurs. You can just look up the internet, and there are so many of them. Like there is the Nudge program, and then there is a Shakti program, and 2, 3 or more. These are just a few I have named that are specifically looking to support women-led ventures. So I would highly encourage that you apply to these incubator programs, you apply to these accelerator programs. A lot of these big universities also across the country, like the IITs and IIMs, also have their separate incubation centers, and they're really on the look to support more diverse projects, and they're always welcoming for women-led ventures, because everybody wants to put more women ahead there on the entrepreneurship front. So definitely consider applying to them. And secondly, even if that seems like a far-fetched option, probably you feel your idea won't make the cut, but if you have an idea, you have probably some mentor who can guide, blueprint, or you have figured out your roadmap ahead, I think you can really start looking up different banks that do offer microfinance solutions. You can see what the eligibility criteria is or what the application process is, and even in college you can get started. And thirdly, if you are someone like me who probably did not have exposure to all these avenues, like when I started my social impact organization, because even before college started off, through whatever scholarships and pocket money I used to get, I was into a lot of saving and investing. So I had some funds that I have, which I bootstrapped into my venture. If you are someone who has any amount of savings and want to take that leap of faith and start off immediately, you can probably initially start off with a bit of bootstrapping, but I would still suggest that bootstrapping is something you can start with, but not something you can sustain on. So I would still suggest apply to some microfinance institution, look up these incubator accelerator programs who not only financially support you, but even connect you to the right mentors who actually open a lot of doors and opportunities for you within the industry, which is very important if you're starting off. So this is something that I'll even personally be able to help or guide with. So if there's anyone listening to this who later on wants to get in touch with me to discuss how these accelerator programs work, what's the application process, the general criteria and eligibilities, you can feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'll be really happy to help you out.
That's great, because I had an idea in my mind and I really wanted a mentor to connect to. So thank you, Priyal. Okay, so we have a last question. Has microfinance impacted you on a personal level? If yes, then how and what advice would you give to yourself before financing yourself at a micro level?
So it hasn't yet impacted me on a personal level because, like I mentioned, I found out about these opportunities much later. Like I did a project on it when I was at the fag end of my master's, which was microfinance and women entrepreneurs. And that's when I realized that such avenues exist. And then I started digging deeper into them and understanding that, other than the commercial and for-profit aspect, are there any microfinance opportunities even available for social impact organizations, because that is what I was running. I still run a social impact organization, and I realized that there are microfinance opportunities even available for them. That's when I decided to, gather things around, and I actually started applying to these underway. And of course, there's a lot happening right now in the background, but nothing that I can actually tell you has quantitatively or qualitatively impacted me. But of course, if I had to go back in college now with the same kind of information I have or the same kind of exposure I have right now, microfinance is definitely what I would look at, because you need that element of sustainability. Like I said, I bootstrapped my savings into my social impact organization to start with, but this is not going to help you sustain. Like you will read a lot of stories where people will say, I started off my venture with 100 rupees in my pocket. I started off my venture with nothing and everything. It's okay to start off a venture at that stage, but if you're really looking to scale up your venture, if you're really looking to sustain your venture, you're going to need the funds, and you're going to have to act smart if you're going to need them. And to act smart, you need to be aware of what are the different cards you can play, what are the opportunities available to you. And microfinance is a big ace if you're a woman entrepreneur. So I would suggest make the most of it. Really get out there, go to a lot of these. So a lot of these banks also who offer microfinance facilities have these different formal programs, especially for women. So like it's as basic as if you're someone who wants to go for education abroad, how they have these dedicated education loans and programs for students aspiring to going abroad. Similarly, if you're a woman entrepreneur, they have these dedicated schemes and programs. Even the government has a lot of schemes and programs. They have tried and simplified the procedure also for any woman entrepreneur to register her business. So avail of those incentives and subsidies also. Of course, they differ a lot from state to state, so can't comment for other states. But in Maharashtra, I know there are a lot of initiatives and schemes that are available. There's an Udyogini scheme, a lot of other schemes that you can actually make use of, and even reap the benefits of the subsidies and the incentives that are available under them.
Thanks a lot. This was really insightful, and I guess audience would really, go through this podcast and take the advice that you have given up. And any last minute advice you'd like to give, like anything you'd like to add at the end?
I think the most important advice would be, don't underestimate yourself. If you are even in college, but you think you have an idea, go for it. Trust me, there are a lot of opportunities available. It might scare you because you are in the environment of your college campus. It's a pretty protected environment where it's you, your friends, your teachers, and suddenly you know you're going to put yourself out there way beyond your comfort zone and do something you've never done before. But go for it, give it a shot. It's not till you put yourself out there do you understand how far you can go. So don't limit your dreams, or don't limit your aspirations on basis of how am I going to manage the funds, how am I going to manage the business. Go for it. There are a lot of opportunities available out there.
That's great. That was really insightful. Thank you, Priyal, for joining for today's session.